Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us. To everyone who's tuning in now, my name is Bethel Sagai, and I'm the Senior Project Manager with Community Change Action and the Black Freedom Collective. In a moment, we will be joined by a group of incredible Black women organizers who are working to build power in the communities where they live for the people they care about. And tomorrow is, of course, Juneteenth, or Freedom Day, an important holiday for Black Americans celebrating the formal end of slavery. Across the country, people will be taking to the streets to call attention to the need to defund the police state and invest in Black communities. This is a moment for us to come together to demand broad systems change. Now, before I introduce the panelists, I want to invite folks who are tuning in to post your questions in the chat throughout the call as things come up. And I also want to invite you all to sign up for our petition to defund the police state and create a caring economy. That petition should be linked below in the description box, and we'll also drop a link in the chat. Also want to invite everyone here, as we're gearing up to the November elections, to help us with doing voter engagement. We want to make sure that folks show up at the polls so that we can change the leadership in our country. And so we're inviting you to sign up to be a volunteer, to engage your family, your friends, and the community members through voter outreach. And all you have to do is just drop your name below in the registration link. There should be a bit.ly link. And join one of our weekly volunteer meetings. We're going to be having them every week, all the way up until November. So please sign up and invite others to sign up as well. All right, so I want to introduce my guests. So my guests this morning are Erica Clemmons Dean with the New Georgia Project. She's the National Organizing Director. Welcome, Erica.
Welcome. Thank you, Bethel.
Thanks for joining us. I also want to welcome Tammy Fournier-Alsaada, who's a lead organizer for the People's Justice Project. Welcome, Tammy.
Thank you for having me. It's good to be here.
And I also want to bring on Jennifer Wells, Executive Director of Our Futures.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Welcome, Jennifer. And lastly but not least, I want to bring on Eboni Taylor, who's the Executive Director of Mothering Justice.
Hi, thank you for having me.
Thank you all for being here. A warm welcome to you all again, and thank you for the amazing work that you all do day in and day out on the ground to build the power of Black people, Black women, and the Black LGBTQI community. So I'd love for you all to introduce yourself and, also just describe the focus of your organization and how you all are showing up in this moment. Erica, I'll start with you.
Yep. So good morning, everyone. I'm Erica Clemmons Dean. I'm the organizing director for the New Georgia Project. Our focus, we are a nonpartisan C3 organization that's focused on voter registration, voter mobilization, voter engagement, to ensure that all Georgians have fair access to their voting rights. In this moment, we have still been heavily engaged in the voter protection and voter registration. We just ended our primaries this past Tuesday. So it's been just heavy conversations, deep canvassing with our constituents in the state of Georgia. We cover all 159 counties in Georgia and just make sure that, folks are actively participating in the voting process.
Thanks so much, Erica. Tammy?
Yes, hello everyone. My name is Tammy Fournier-Alsaada. I am a founding member of the People's Justice Project. I also am the organizing director of People's Justice Project, as well as the Juvenile Justice Coalition of Ohio. The People's Justice Project was founded from the ideal that directly impacted people must be leading the conversation against mass incarceration, police accountability, and a reinvestment in our communities. We organize Black folks, working class folks, and people, oppressed people everywhere. We were founded in 2015, And currently we are leading the conversation on police transformation in Ohio.
Thanks so much, Tammy. Eboni?
Hi, again, my name is Eboni Taylor. I am the Michigan Executive Director of Mothering Justice, and Mothering Justice focuses on economic justice and public policy issues that impact mothers of color. The whole idea, if I were to sum it up, is that we want to turn moms, Black moms, moms of color, into policy powerhouses. We've had wins in the state of Michigan. Well, because of Mothering Justice's efforts, we have a paid sick days law in Michigan. And so we, right now in this moment, are ramping up and really doubling down on our relational organizing program, and we're encouraging vote by mail.
Thanks, Eboni. Jennifer?
Hi, I'm Jennifer Wells. I'm the Executive Director of Our Future West Virginia. We're a statewide organization whose mission and vision is to build a West Virginia where everyone, no matter who they are, can thrive. We have 4 focuses really in order to build that state. And that's looking at deep leadership development on the ground, building power on the ground in local communities, focused around the things that basically frame up how you can live and thrive, which is education, making certain that public education, higher education is free and affordable for all citizens. We work on economic justice, living wage. We're a right to work state, so we're still fighting to make certain that workers have their fair rights presented and committed to them by the state. We are also working on civic engagement. You empower folks when their voice is heard. Their voice is heard at the local level, state level, and federal level, at the ballot, and in other areas. And we want to make certain that people feel empowered to build their voice. And we do all of this work under a racial justice lens.
Thank you. Thank you all so much. So we know that the same challenges that Black people face in our society also impacts Black-led organizations. And one of those challenges is, of course, lack of resources and access to resources, right? There are well-documented issues with equity and funding. Organizations led by people of color win less grant money and are trusted less to make decisions about how to spend those funds than groups who have white leadership. According to a recent report by Bridgespan and Echoing Green, white-led groups had budgets that were 24% larger than those led by people of color. And, it also found that groups led by Black women received far less money than those led by Black men or white women. And this often results in Black-led organizations receiving far less than we need, right, to actually do our work. So I'd love to hear from you all about your experience with this issue. Like, how are you managing, and what do you believe must be done to level the playing field? Jennifer, I'll start with you.
Certainly. So I've been in this position, the executive position, for about 1.5 years now. And the first thing when anyone asked me what did I fear the most when I assumed this position, I laid on financial. The fact that I wasn't certain that when I walked into a room, or I walked into a meeting, or I walked on a phone call seeking funding for the work that we're doing, the work that we're winning at, that I would be seen in the same lens that the former ED, who is a white man, would be viewed and be given the same resources. And so what it's meant for me, and I've been successful, is I'm sure covering way more ground in less time than my predecessors and other EDs in my state. So it means constantly making phone calls, constantly asking for introductions, and building relationships with funders so that they could see us and see past even my representation. And that's very tough to say, right? It's very tough to say that I'm representing a very successful group of organizers and very successful work, but that I always walk into a room afraid that I won't receive the resources to continue this work, simply because I walk in as a Black woman. And so to combat that, I think I just do that. I work, as we all have, all of our lives. You work a little bit harder, and you walk, I guess, cover more ground. What I would suggest for funders is I am tired, and I'm sure I can echo or maybe get agreement from my sisters. I am so tired of the penny ante annual cycle that grant makers put us through. So every year we're having to spend more and more energy trying to prove why we deserve a small pot of money for a short-term period, right? Funders, if you're listening, long-term work is what is successful. And please understand that multi-year grants, and we will be willing to tell you where we are in the place of our work, but we need long-term grants. And I'm not talking 3-year, I'm talking 10-year. This type of work, as we're seeing what's happening in this country, deserves to be funded and to be successful, and it's going to take time. And I hope the funding community understands that and understands that Black women are hugely successful at getting this work done. Like, we are the winners, right? So you're going to be betting on or placing money on a high risk. We get the work done. We work the hardest, and we have a proven track record. Yeah, that's my piece.
Thank you, Jennifer. Erica, how about you?
I second all that Jennifer just said. I have not, in the past couple of roles, has definitely been around. I've been organizing director, whether this organization or my previous organization. So not necessarily in the midst of the active fundraising. But what I can say as the organizing director is, yes, we need more resources. We need it to be long-term, but we need it to be general support. Like, I need to be able to run programming that I can pivot when I need pivoting because of my community needs. I think this year was a prime example. We were all set with a very robust program, and then COVID-19 hit, something that's very uncontrollable. But with having general support, we can pivot how we need to still service our community through needs, through organizing, voter registration, however we need to do it, but we have the funds already available. Funders like to, encourage us to be bold and progressive with our programs and kind of control what's happening with the programs. We need that too. We need for them to be bold and progressive and unapologetic about allowing us to do the work that we know, where we live at, where we shop at, we spend our daily lives. We know how to talk to the people and organize them, and they need to trust that. It'll look better on their funding records to show that I funded this amount to this organization and they got it done. They got the work done. We're seeing progress in the communities. And like Jennifer mentioned, it's definitely not going to take 2 or 3 years to happen. If you take a look at 2018 in Georgia and what happened to the voter suppression and all of the tactics that they had, and we're now 2 years later in 2020 and need to fight harder. Right. So nothing changed, that it's gotten harder, and we need to be even more progressive and bolder in our actions, which means our funding resources need to match how we're moving in this space.
Thank you. So I just want to repeat back some of the things I've heard. So what I hear is that funders who are listening, that we need to trust Black-led organizations and give them long-term grants, because this work is long-term. It is not something that we do overnight. Also, that we need to trust that it is folks who have lived experiences, who know what the solutions are, right? People who are already embedded in the community, who already have a sense of trust and established relationships with the people that they're serving. I'm also curious to hear, and I'd love to hear from you, Tammy and Erica, and Eboni, about, if you think that there is a shift, or there will be a shift now that, again, we are with, Black Lives Matter sort of in the spotlight. Do you anticipate a shift in the way that funders are giving to Black-led organizations? I'd love to hear from you, Eboni.
Yeah, I absolutely hope so. This entire these data points are, in no way surprising. We've seen historically, we've even experienced at Mother and Justice being asked to join forces with white-led organizations, only for them to reach out to us, asking for stories, or asking for us to reach out to Black moms. We've had white woman-led organizations that focus on mothers reach out to us for the Black mom piece. And so thankfully we're extremely blessed Mothering Justice is, where our funders recognize our power and, fund us accordingly. I do certainly agree with Jennifer and Erica around the terms being longer. I appreciate Jennifer for saying, if there are any funders listening, but certainly hope that given this time, that funders are, for me, it's relaxing some of their standards and their criteria for applying for grants, for renewing grants, for reporting. I mean, it's just the time that we're in where we really don't have the time to take any of our precious resources, any of our precious staff time away from the work, away from the strategy, away from connecting with community, to sit in front of our computers and go through this piles and piles of arduous paperwork and meticulous reporting. And so my hope is that in this time, it shows that, hey, if you really want the work to be done on the ground, that, funders, you have to relax on the criteria and on the reporting. So I hope that comes out of this time.
Thank you, Eboni. Tammy.
Yes. Thank you, Eboni. So much has been said that I've just been taking notes because, and thank you, Eboni, for lifting that, because we are at war everywhere with the state, which requires us to be on the front line. I just got off a call saying that same thing, Eboni. If you truly trust me to do this work, then trust me, I'm going to get you your paperwork. Because my people here in Ohio, and I know across this country, first of all, Black women will always lead us forward. And we have not been respected or valued in a way that it gives us the capacity to do what must be done. And so for me here in Ohio, and for most Black women I know, we've always, if you got some peanut butter, I got some jelly. Mm-hmm. And if you got some sugar, I bet I'll do something with it. And so that's who we are. It's in us to be. We are the village. We are community. We show up and we take care of one another. And, I'm a proud Black woman. I don't beg for nothing. What I know is that people will always take care of themselves. And so what we are seeing right now, historically, making history all around the world, is that the people will always rise up. Oppressed people will always seek freedom. And so right now, what we're going to do with this energy, because I don't really like having money conversation. I'm not a beggar. What I know is that we will rise up. And right now we have an opportunity to harness that energy in a way that we can wield enough power to transform this country. And so, and to speak to election and voter engagement and those things, much like my sisters here, our organizing shifted immediately to the coronavirus crises. And funders were having us on calls. I felt like a jack in the box, just jumping on calls. Mm-hmm. And we were already trying to get ahead of the movement in that. And so this movement is so organic and unique that if we trust oppressed people, that they will come forth when we frame an issue in a way that they understand it will affect their life. I'm not worried about the money. I know that we as Black people have enough. There are enough Black folks to care about this issue. And it is up to us to frame a narrative that brings us into this fight. And so that's what we're doing here in Ohio. That's what I'm encouraging everyone to do, because no longer am I going to sit and beg them. Yeah. No longer am I going to go down to the State House on a Saturday, although I got to go this Saturday, when there's nobody there that are writing legislation to change these issues. And we don't have to beg. I know y'all all see the images that are pouring out from every major city across the country. The people are ready to engage. Mm-hmm. And so we have to be thinking about what are we inviting them into, for the sake of what? And I'm telling you, when a Black mama get up and talk about her story and share what it is that she needs her people to do, and people will always respond. I believe in our people. I believe that this is a moment that is unique, that is historic. And so I'm so grateful that we are strategizing together to think about how do we, one, stay focused, because there's going to be so many distractions. How do we stay focused on winning? And I believe that we will win. Police accountability in this nation, not just this nation, but across this world.
Yeah. Can I add?
Thank you. Yeah, go ahead.
That was, I mean, that was a absolute perfect point. And when you said, you know, I'm not gonna beg, it's like, yeah, and then it's also, but we still keep having to prove ourselves over and over and over again, because the expectation is that Black women, we turn $1 into $1,000. You know, we do the most with the minimum. And just to continuously have to prove ourselves over and over and over again for, you know, pennies on the dollar, it's just a smack in the face. And I just feel like it's, to your point, you know, it has to change. It really does. Because if it's not begging, it's constantly having to prove ourselves. And I think Jennifer mentioned that too.
Yes, we're only as good as our last hit record every cycle.
Mm-hmm.
I was a fall fellow for President Obama's 2012 re-election campaign. And I watched an infrastructure come into my state and into my city and set up beautiful offices. And just every time I would drive up to the office, there was just so much life and movement, and people were inspired and energized. And almost a day after the election, I watched that thing roll up and disappear. Mm-hmm. And I still drive by that building in my historic Black neighborhood in my city and think, what would it look like? And sometimes I sit there and imagine, what would it look like to keep that kind of organizing on the ground so that we don't have to continuously go back and reorganize our people?
Yeah.
We come in as these big machines and we drop down in the city and we hire a bunch of folks. And then the winter comes and I'll pass those folks standing in front of gas stations begging for quarters. Who are we? And what are we really doing is the question that we have to ask, not just funders, but ourselves. Mm-hmm. Black people get inspired and then those dreams are dashed and water's thrown on them. And then we are required as Black women and movement leaders to come right back again and sell them another dream that they never see come to fruition. And so the most important thing we can do, and maybe we don't have the capacity to do it everywhere, but there's movement happening in major cities that we can put capacity on the ground and leave it there.
Yeah, and just one quick remark. I know we need to transition to more of this lovely, bubbly conversations. But Bethel, you asked the question, do we feel like because of this moment that we're going to see a uptake in funding for Black-led organizations? And I can say, yes, that has happened. You see the commercials daily that these corporations are donating to the Movement for Black Lives and the NAACP. But what about the local groups that are on the ground? It is great to give to national organizations that are doing great work. I am a part of Movement for Black Lives Matter. I am a part of NAACP Atlanta chapter. But there are organizations, smaller organizations than those national organizations that need the money just as bad and can do more of the lift with the capacity of having on the ground organizers that are in the communities every single day. So it's great that these corporations are doing these large donations, but we're in Georgia. You know, we have the headquarters of quite a lot of corporations that could be donating to nonprofits like New Georgia Project and other organizations that are on the ground every single day. So the uptake is happening. It's just not happening necessarily where it should be or as much as it should be. They should be giving to those and organizations that are on the ground, that are the trusted messengers of our community.
Because they end up asking us to do work anyway. Yeah. They end up asking us to reach out anyway. So
yeah.
I
just want to echo that, Erica.
Yeah, thank you so much for lifting that up. And I really hope that funders are watching this, because I think these are really important messages for them to really understand like how it is that we can truly build power of all organizations, no matter how big or small. But I also just want to say, Ebony, what you said about criteria, taking away that harsh criteria and making it easier for Black organizations, especially in this moment. And Tammy, just to what you said about this is war, this is we are all in rapid response mode. Mm-hmm. And so I think funders need to understand that we are in this context where things are moving so fast that, folks don't have time to sit down and fill out long applications, right? And have these back and forth. Folks need money right now to be able to do the work. So, appreciate that you all have lifted that up. And I think this is a good segue. I also just want to make a quick announcement. We just got word that the U.S. Supreme Court ruled on DACA this morning, which is fantastic news, right? This is amazing. And it's an incredible moment and relief for DACA recipients and immigrant families across the country. For our network of Firm, Casa in Action, United We Dream, who are actually out there rallying right now at the Supreme Court. So just wanted to lift that up. Yes. And so I think this is a good segue to talk a little bit about November, right? So we're all ramping up to engage voters leading up to the 2020 general elections. Tammy, you were talking about the voter engagement that you all are doing out in Ohio. So I'm curious, as you're doing this organizing, what are the issues that people that you are organizing are saying that are important to them? And why don't we start with you, Eboni?
We're constantly talking to we're constantly talking to the community. Even now, every Wednesday, we hold our mama conversations every Wednesday at 7 p.m. We have our mama's agenda that has been curated by these conversations with mothers. Right now, we're very much so focused on Black maternal health, safety net issues, or income guarantees. We're focused on affordable childcare and paid leave and paid sick days. However, we recently, and I actually just got the results back yesterday from our statewide survey that's been in the field for about 2 months. And we did this in partnership with the National Women's Organization, the National Women's Law Center. But the results haven't been released, by the way, either. But what I can say is that we're hearing a lot more around a lot of the issues we've already lifted up, like economic security, but we're also hearing more around safety, because the report was in the field prior to George Floyd, and then, still in the field after. So we saw an interesting result from that, and a lot around safety, a lot around economic security, income stability, living wage, paid sick. Now more than ever, paid sick days, paid family leave, Black folks especially, but a lot of people I know, of course, have been laid off or are seeing reduced hours. But now more than ever, people are looking for that safety net of paid sick days or paid family leave. So we're really just echoing what we've already been saying, and saying now more than ever, as we emerge out of this COVID, as we emerge out of this time, hopefully it's not a return to normal. It's a return to something way better than we had before, where when we are met with situations such as this pandemic, we're not scrambling for emergency legislation. We're not scrambling to get on the ground, to get people food on the ground, and to get people resources on the ground. It should be public policy and legislation, laws in place already that just make sense. So that's what we're hearing. I hope I answered the question.
No, that was great, Eboni. Thanks so much. Jennifer, how about you? What are you hearing?
So it's it's layered and it's intersectional. One thing that I've said to folks that I've talked to outside of West Virginia is West Virginia was dealing with COVID-related consequences for the last 2 or 3 decades, even 50 years, so to speak, right? The vulnerability that was exposed throughout this pandemic of folks that thought they were okay, knowing that maybe they didn't have a great savings, but thought they were okay, are now seeing how wide open they are to complete and utter devastation if one piece of our infrastructure falls apart. So healthcare has always been on our minds, and it's even more so on our minds as rural hospitals are closing. I mean, it's to the point that certain residents in our state have to apply for or get helicopter insurance added to their health insurance so that they could be airlifted to the nearest hospital, because the nearest hospital may be more than an hour and a half away from where they live. So that's been there from before, and now it's even more exacerbated because of COVID. Education. What is education and going back to school going to look like in the fall? What are the safety precautions? Unemployment that is now tied to the fact that folks that were already struggling, particularly women, we all know that women are typically getting the shortest end of the stick, lost their food security benefits, right? Their SNAP benefits, because they got a little bit of extra money from unemployment, and they have yet to receive that unemployment. And so we're dealing with folks that are absolutely without everything at this moment. And then housing was an issue that we were stressing. It was a priority for our organization, and it's become even more of a priority now, because as folks were losing income, evictions, petitions were starting to stack up and waiting for the courthouse to open so that they could be issued. And so folks are losing literally their basic needs as we speak. Literally as we speak. So those are the things that are surfacing for our people, and many more. And now we have the cavern opening up to the racial justice conversation. And something that I wanted to say, that Black folks in particular, and Black folks in West Virginia, and we do exist here, have been screaming for the last 2 years. We don't feel safe. This isn't a safe environment for us. And now all of a sudden eyes are awakening and voices are being heard. And so we're being able to push an agenda now. Things are starting to move. Congratulations, DACA recipients. You've deserved this kind of peace for years. And the fact that the people out on the street marching now, showing us full-fledged what people power actually looks like, right? You guys have been doing it steadfast for years, and now folks are on the streets and we're not taking it anymore. And so we have to use this moment, as Eboni says, to create what we desire. We're not going back to normal. What we had was horrible. It wasn't even normal. It was horror. Yeah. We need to create an environment, a world that we can thrive in. And that's pushing people to the polls. We had a local victory here in my town that I live in Huntington, where mothers, single mothers, Black single mothers who have yet to be engaged in the political system because they're intentionally left out. Politicians don't come to our neighborhoods to talk to us, right? But they found a candidate from their neighborhood that they could trust, who'd been with them as a child care provider for over 30 years, who is now a city councilwoman in this town. They saw their vote actually matter. It's going to be a lot easier to have a conversation with this group of women about how much more important their vote is going to be in November, and how much power they actually can show at the ballot box, and hopefully in other places as well. So those are the things that are surfacing here in West Virginia. It's a lot. It's a lot.
Thank you, Jennifer. Indeed, it is a lot. And I'm hearing a lot between what you shared, Eboni, and Jennifer, really just around security and safety. It's really covering basic needs of people. I'm curious, Tammy, what are you hearing in Ohio?
Much the same. You know, we 2 years ago put criminal justice reform on our ballot. We collected the second largest signatures in Ohio's history on criminal justice reform, and we were defeated. But we never stopped organizing. So we have continuously been having this conversation on local races. Currently, we have a prosecutor race coming up in Ohio, across Ohio, but also in Columbus, where our organization was founded. And so we've been meeting with folks and lawyers and community folks and organizing about how important it is, one, to make sure that people are engaged and they understand the power of their vote, but more importantly, that they understand who they're voting for. So our conversations are rooted in, where does the power lie to change the issues that we care about? And so if we care about policing and criminal justice and mass incarceration and abolition and all those things that we name, then that means that we must demand And I mean that, and that's what we're doing here, is demanding that these folks that will pop up and come to every black church across this nation, and every black woman, they'll want the photo op with us standing next to them. Mm-hmm. But are we holding them accountable to the issues important to us in the black community? And so that's the conversation we're having. All politics are local. And so we know each person, and we always intentionally make it a point, because in Ohio and in Columbus, they must come to the People's Justice Project because they know that we are going to hold them accountable on mass incarceration, on criminal justice reform and police accountability. Right now, all of us know that disproportionately black people are being affected by this virus. We must have them on a national platform and an investment. What does that really mean? I hear every day people get on the news and people in communities are asking the question, if we understand it, don't even get me started on the conversation that's happening in Ohio around racism has been deemed a public health emergency. And so every politician is getting up saying that. And I had to call them and say, what does that mean? Mm-hmm. Because you can name a thing, but then what are you going to do to address it? And so that's the conversation that's happening here. People are organizing everywhere because we demand reparations for what has been done to us here in Ohio. We demand reparations on police accountability. I know that there are more folks that we haven't engaged around voter registration, and there's 3 prongs to that for us here in Ohio. Not only must we be registered to vote, but we have to verify, because all of y'all know that folks show up at polls and they've been purged from the polls. Mm-hmm. And so we do voter registration, voter verification, and voter education. That's in the core of our organization. A person must be prepared to go to the ballot. And right now in Ohio, and I know many states, we don't even know what that's going to look like in process right now. And so we must be preparing people. And that's our conversation here, because of issue 1, we built enough power that people understand the importance. But right now, we don't even know what we're being called to do as we lead to one of the most important elections of our lifetime.
Thank you, Tammy. Erica, what are you hearing in Georgia?
Like the ladies on here, everything that you all mentioned, second that. We're definitely hearing that. But I think for Georgia, as I mentioned earlier, Tuesday, we just had our primary election, which was horrible. It was a horrific election day. The processes were not set in place. So the main thing is our folks don't trust our government. We do not trust the Secretary of State to make sure that our ballots are processed properly or counted, or, this process of standing in line. We don't trust that at all. I've been hearing since this COVID that nothing, in this moment is normal. This is not normal. We're not going back to normal. But if we really think about these suppression tactics, this target on Black folks' back, it's normal. It's their normal. You know what I'm saying? Like, they've been doing this for years. There's nothing new about it just because COVID hit. They just have a different way of showing it. They have a much stronger way to flex it. And we, as a community, as Black folks, are in even much more of a dire need. Unemployment is jacked up. Even when there's a system set in place for things like this, for folks to still receive some type of income to come in, they can't even get that right. So where is the trust? Our folks don't trust our government. We don't trust the process. We don't trust that it is benefiting us in any way at all. There will be another round of COVID. COVID is not over. And folks are acting, as if that it's over. Let's freely open our state. Let's let those who can go back to work, even though they don't feel safe. So not only do we have now the fact that, police brutality in our communities have heightened visibly, it's always been there, but the cameras are coming back on and they're Facebooking live more often now, but you don't even feel safe at work. You don't know if somebody got the flu or if they got COVID, and you're going to challenge that. You're going to take that risk because for whatever reason, we feel like being deathly sick and taking that chance is more important. It's as important as paying rent and putting food on our tables. So we're going to get out there and we're going to go vote On Tuesday, the lines were ridiculous. The last person in Georgia at one of the polling locations that was voted at 12:37 a.m. The polls closed at 9. And this is because folks were determined. They were determined to get their voices heard through the ballot box. We are heavily pushing mail-in ballots for November. And that needs to be an active process, an active campaign, mailing your ballots. It is not over. Although we were out at the polls passing out PPE, snacks, water, whatever it took, because we're going to meet the people where they are. And if they want to go out and vote, we're going to make sure that they have the proper things and not rely on the system to help us with that when they're supposed to. But yeah, that's what we're hearing in Georgia.
And I would add to that, quickly, Bethel, even on the mail-in process, we pushed in our primary that process, but there are so many layers. So I don't know if this happened around the country, but in Ohio, you had to request a ballot, and then you had to get that form sent by snail mail. Then you had to take that form and mail it in to get a ballot. Then you had to get your ballot and go back. So if you think about low-income folks and folks that don't have the ability to go back and forth to the post office, if you think about folks may not even have it, who has a damn stamp? So that's a process. I had to go to the post office and buy some stamps. We need to be looking at this process across the country. We need to be doing everything we can to eliminate any of those barriers in a way. And then this country is smart enough. Why the hell I'm sorry, I never say hell on this. Can't we vote by phone, by an app? I mean, we are an intelligent country. And so there's some transformative things that we need to be pushing ourselves, that we bring more people into this process. That is our right. But there are so many things. I heard so many people saying they waiting on their application to ask for a ballot. How come you can't send me my application with my ballot? Right. Or alleviate that process electronically if possible. So I think we need to be peeling back the layers. And I believe, and I know that these are tactics they're using to suppress our vote. And we need to be raising those issues now and not when it's time for us to cast, again, the most important vote we'll cast.
Yeah.
Can I mention really?
Thank you, Tammy, for lifting that up. Sorry, I know you wanted to speak, but I just wanted to say, I mean, we wanted to actually talk about, what are the barriers to voting that are actually being put intentionally to stop Black people and people of color from voting. And Eboni, did you want to chime in here on this? I know we have to close soon, but it would be great to hear from you.
Yeah, I'll try to be super quick. So yeah, just the trust. The trust piece is just across the board, whether in person, by mail. And so, I mean, here in Michigan, we have some secure locations that you can drop, your ballot off at. And so we're hoping to use that along with the fact that, we were told by the Michigan ACLU that the post office doesn't say this publicly, but they will mail a ballot. If it's a ballot, they'll mail it without a stamp. So just want to put that out there. We were told that they will not say that, but that is a thing. So we're just really trying to push ways for folks to, instead of all those trips, as Tammy mentioned, to the post office, finding alternative ways for folks to get their ballot in. And, just for folks' safety, encouraging them to do so by mail, because it's just not a traditional way, I know, in the Black community for us to vote. So we're really pushing that.
Thank you, Eboni. Yes, so we will find a way to get out there and cast our ballots because we all want change, especially change of our leadership in this country. So thank you all. I mean, this conversation is far from being over. We've just sort of touched, it's the tip of the iceberg. And I know that folks would love to engage more, especially around these issues of, what can we do to make sure that folks get out at the polls for November, but also around these issues of lack of resources, especially now we're in this moment where there's a lot of spotlight on these issues. We want to make sure that our voices are heard as Black-led organizations to make sure that we're also getting the funds that we deserve to do our work. So thank you to our guests this morning for joining the discussion, and all of you who have joined us for logging on. The link to this morning's conversation will be immediately available on the Community Change Action social media sites, our Instagram, YouTube, Facebook, and we invite you all to share this video with your network. Also, we want to remind you all to sign up to become a volunteer to do voter outreach, and sign our petition to defund the police state. Have a happy Freedom Day tomorrow. Thank you.